fuel window somewhere in the mid to high 40 lap range.
And that's important because they can't go the entire stage without having to fill up. So green flag pit stops also very chaotic. And as I mentioned, normally you would see a finish line right about at the apex of the tri-oval. Not here at Talladega. It is on their way down into turn one. The field of 40 making their way by this packed crowd at Talladega. Green flags in the air.
Very strange start. Second, third row just did not get going at all. Keselowski was way behind, but is pulled right back up to the back of Chase Elliott.
And we're going to talk about it, Rick. With these restricted engines, the horsepower is restricted. It takes about a lap or a little over a lap to get up to full speed.
The Batcam goes 100 miles an hour. We were just riding along with it as it went down the Alabama Gang super stretch. Now through 3 and 4, we're going to also talk a lot about blocking because that's going to happen quite a bit here today. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is going to try to do it every lap from here on out.
You just saw Joey Logano put a big block on Chase Elliott. Use that block to try to get alongside Dale Jr. trying to clear him for the lead.
First lap led by Joey Logano, but will Dale Earnhardt Jr. in that inside line fight back on the inside?
It didn't take long for this lead to end up a 2 wide battle. We'd expect it to go from 2 to 3 wide most of the day.
And you mentioned 3 wide. Now Logano is out front trying to dictate which lane moves. He'll try to move in front of whichever lane is trying to advance so he can block. Marty.
Rick, Joey Logano up front in that 22 car. Remember, he is not currently in the playoffs, so he's got nothing to lose this weekend. His teammate Brad Keselowski back there in the white number 2 car, he is in the playoffs, but had a very bad result at Charlotte last week. Finished 15th. Expect that number 2 car to be very aggressive all day long. He's a 4-time Talladega winner. A win here in the playoffs certainly would help them out.
So when I used the word chaotic earlier, now you can understand. These cars now are traveling in a pack right at 200 miles an hour, and they're within inches of each other. One mistake in the front of this pack or even in the middle, and it could collect 20 to 30 cars.
Well, and as you see on the right-hand side of your screen, those cars don't stay stable in a single line. They move around a couple feet in each direction just because of the air. So think about that. Inches apart, but moving a couple feet. The one car or another car move together, make contact. That's how a big wreck starts.
And in years past, we'd be 185 laps to go, but now it's 53 to go to stage 1 when points are paid, so the intensity has to pick up right from the start.
Joey Logano out front, and again, he'll be continuing to try to move from one line to the other, but look at behind him. Already 3 lines are forming back behind this group. And Steve, you used an analogy earlier when we were talking off camera about a funnel. You're now putting 3 cars around a racetrack where there's really not enough room for anyone to make a move. It's like trying to funnel everyone through one little area, and you just can't move if you don't have help from someone else.
Yeah, you have to have help, and you also have to have a lane to use. As you mentioned, they're 3 wide back here in the middle of the pack, and that is why we're going to see so much aggression out front. Drivers don't want to lose that track position. You have a chance in the front 3, 4, 5, 6 cars of this race to win this race in closing laps. But Jeff, the years of coming from 15th or 20th, I'm not sure it can happen because there's so much traffic.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part. I think that's why that race for track position, we talked about it, Dale Jr. is running second. It's not like he's in the back, but he's given up the lead. Now he can't set the tempo of the race. He's going to do everything he can to get that lead back.
Well, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in that Sunny D17 car, one of the favorites. You talk about how important it is to have someone to work with. Well, he came over the radio before the race started to tell his spotter, hey, there's a lot of different colors out here today, so make sure you let me know who's ahead of me, who's behind me, until I can figure out these different paint schemes. Just another one of the challenges for these drivers is they're trying to figure out who they can and can't work with out there today.
And the reason he needs to know who it is because he knows the personalities of all the drivers. He knows what a driver's going to do. He knows who he can trust and who he can't trust. All these different paint schemes, you really have to relearn who you're running with.
That was interesting there. We saw the 17 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. go up, bump the 88. So Dale Earnhardt Jr. had to run. He was going to try to make a move on Joey Logano to see if he could get by. At the same time, we saw Brad Keselowski come over and side draft him, which took that run away a little bit from the 88. There's so many things that are happening that these drivers have to try to work on to make a single pass here at Talladega. Marty?
And Rick, you see these manufacturers working together. In fact, Joey Logano is leading the race, told me earlier this week. When Toyota worked together in the 2016 Daytona 500, it forever changed the game of restrictor plate racings. You see manufacturers, teams working together that may not be in the same building, but they're that same manufacturer. They're trying to get together. So one plan for the Ford teams, get as many together as they can. And you saw Dale Earnhardt Jr. immediately react to that. He tried to break up those Team Penske cars. Steve, the game at restrictor plate racing certainly has changed, and when you're in that other manufacturer, you want to break up those guys from getting together, don't you?
Well, you do, but I've also learned that it's very easy to make plans in the bus lot or on paper, but very hard to execute them on the racetrack. I mean, look at this chaos as Dale Jr. takes a hard left-hand turn underneath leader Joey Logano, but then the 2 doesn't go with him. So a good move, but without the help, it's going to be hard to finish off that pass.
And part of the reason that's hard is because that third lane on the outside, led by Jimmy Johnson, it has made a huge run toward the front of the pack. So Dale Jr. did not have the energy with him. All the energy was on that outside lane. I'll be honest with you, I'm surprised that third lane has worked this early in the race.
Three wide for second. Joey Logano out front. Now he's going to have to make a decision. Which line does he get in front of? Moments ago, the 24 was just behind the 88. They're the 2 fastest cars here, right? They started on the front row. Well, because they didn't work together, now they're getting shuffled back. Dave.
And Rick, you can see how difficult it is to maintain position. You talked about the 24 of Chase Elliott starting on the front row. If they finished stage 1 the way they started, he'd get 9 points. But just keeping that 24 up in this front group, difficult. You see him working all the different lines, trying to find what works best for him. And sometimes he just can't help it because others gang up and move by.
And right now, Joey Logano is trying his hardest to stay in front of this pack. One car leading the other 39 around Talladega Superspeedway.